What with hybrid work having become the norm, offices can feel a little empty some days. And since connection and culture is still very important for employee engagement, we thought we'd talk about some tips on how to repurpose office space to make on-site employees feel more comfortable and maybe even lure a few folks back to the workplace. To that end, I'm speaking today with Debbie DeWitt. She is the Marketing Communications Manager for Visix. Hi, Deb.
Hi, Derek.
I'd like to thank everybody for listening to this episode of Digital Signage Done Right. I remind you can subscribe and review, and you can follow along with a transcript on the Visix website. Whether you're using digital signage or not, our podcast gives you practical tips for communications and content to better engage your audience. I'm Derek DeWitt. Welcome to Digital Signage Done Right. So in the past few years, traditional office landscapes have really undergone kind of a seismic shift. Remote work started really kicking in, became pretty normal, and many organizations adapted to this new way of doing things, but some of them they haven't done a very good job.
That's true. And while remote work offers flexibility and convenience, we all know that, there's also a growing recognition of the value that being in the office can bring to collaboration, innovation, and company culture. Some people just miss in-person interactions.
Yeah, fair enough. You spend 40 hours plus a week with these people, it'd be nice to spend some time with them, And I know some people are really eager to get back to the office, and yet other people are really finding a lot of benefits in remote work. So I guess my question is, why should people go back to the office if it's not required?
Well, like you just said, you spent a lot of time with these people. You may just miss your coworkers. Also, when you have new coworkers, people kind of want to meet face to face a lot of times. But I will say this, when people show up to the office, it has to be welcoming, and it has to offer them something that they don't get out of their home office. So, to really entice employees back, these companies have to reimagine and repurpose their facilities to meet really a whole new set of needs and expectations.
Okay, so let's walk through some of the main benefits of repurposing your office spaces.
Well, the first benefit is really enhanced collaboration, like we said, and innovation. By creating environments that prioritize collaborating and also creativity, companies can foster new idea generation and more innovation in their workforce.
Sure, when people are near one another, you get sort of, cross-functional collaboration, serendipitous encounters, and there's just kind of a kind of an ad hoc improvisational feeling sometimes to the workspace, which can be quite pleasant.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to quantify sometimes that benefit of being face-to-face, but there is a benefit, and it depends on what you're doing, who you're doing it with. But, another big benefit is our mantra, employee engagement. You're going to improve it if people are face-to-face, because a well-designed office that really caters to your employees' needs and preferences can boost morale and engagement a lot.
Obviously, when people are supported and they feel comfortable and valued, they're just going to be more productive and committed to their tasks. That's just a kind of a no-brainer. Yeah,
they're more committed to their job. They're more committed to their team, to the company. Along those same lines is reinforcing that company culture.
I always think of physical office spaces kind of as tangible manifestations of a company's culture and values, or they can be, and in the best cases they should be, instead of just a cubicle farm. Something about the way that it's organized, the way that it's laid out, the things that are on offer there should and can support what the company's really all about. I'm not just saying there are posters saying, here's our mission statement, but all of it. The layout, the amenities, the decor, everything.
Absolutely. You have to design your spaces around that organizational ethos, around your identity, around your culture. It reinforces that identity, and it really brings a sense of belonging to that culture.
Right. So if your part of your mission statement is, we connect people, then something about the way that your space is laid out should foster connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And, anyone who's seen Office Space, that's like the worst. The Cube Farm it's very much, you look at that and go, that's not my corporate culture. But you see a place with lounges, with bean bags, with, snacks and other things we're going to talk about in this episode. That's a culture I can get behind.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, all of this also leads to not just attracting talent, but retaining talent. The job market's competitive, and If you have an attractive office environment, this is a real differentiator and can attract the right people to your company. Because if I'm a potential employee and I'm faced with two possible jobs, both of whom I think are going to offer me the position, and one has a decent in-house experience and the other doesn't, I'm going to go for the one with a good experience.
Me too. Absolutely. And this is really true for Gen Z and even millennials. They started this, and actually I would take a little credit with Gen X and the tech boom. Really looking at new kinds of offices. Yeah, all employees are really prioritizing workplace flexibility, agile work, flexible work, all that kind of thing. But when it comes to the space, it's about flexibility in the space, the amenities on offer, the culture. When you're evaluating a job opportunity, you're going to look at all of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you said, cubicle farms, fluorescent lighting, plastic plants. You're not going to attract top talent, probably.
Yeah, probably not.
But keep in mind, like you said with the tech boom, I think some people may have it in their heads that all this really just means, so that means I have to have, a Nerf basketball hoop and toys for them to goof off, during work hours, which I don't really want them to do. That's not what we're talking about.
Well, it is if it's part of your culture. That's what you have to determine.
Right. So to avoid all the problems that come along with a cubicle farm, we have 15 tips for reimagining and repurposing office spaces to turn them into a place that people might want to actually be in, Number one is flexible workstations. What we're talking about is rethinking the traditional concept of assigned desks. This is where you sit forever. Instead, you can have flexible workstations that can accommodate varying needs and preferences. This could be an office hoteling system where people reserve desks in advance or workstations or rooms or whatever, ensuring there are always enough spaces for people who choose to come in to work on any given day.
Yeah, and we've talked about that in some other episodes in terms of possibly downsizing your space, figuring out how much space you actually need. And, you mentioned office hoteling, but also hot desking. You're going to have some people who just walk in. And, of course, I'm going to recommend our Koros AR booking platform. See our website.
which makes hot desking actually very easy.
It does. And also, I would say having a digital sign, at least one, showing who's in the office and where they're sitting can be really helpful. That way, if you're looking for certain people to sit next to, or you just want to know who's there today, you can see it right there on the screen, maybe in the lobby or, somewhere central.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this gets into the whole concept of office neighborhoods, which we've written about and talked about before.
Yeah, in those neighborhoods, I know, I think you were a teacher. We've talked about people tend to pick a desk, even with hot desking or hoteling, they'll tend to want to sit in that same space every day. But having some of these tools available might make people mix it up a little more, so you can maybe sit next to someone you don't normally sit next to. It's that cross-pollination we talked about. I think a lot of what affects that is what is the actual workstation. You need ergonomic furniture, you need adjustable desks, dual monitors. People need to be able to pick what they need for both, accessibility, comfort, and also obviously productivity.
Right. Yeah. Whatever preferences they have. Like I'm a 2-monitor person. Some people are 3-monitor people. I know in the Visix office, some people are 2 monitors, but one of them is in portrait. And, wow, you prefer that. That would throw me off. But if that's what you like, that's what you like.
Yeah. And that's becoming a lot more common now, too.
I think one of the reasons in office environments people like the same spot all the time is they like to store their stuff there. And so a lot of this is a little bit of a sort of a mindset shift where you don't decorate the desk with your pictures and have a bunch of your personal stuff in the drawers. You take everything with you. So each day is kind of potentially a fresh start on things. And that takes a little bit of mental adjustment.
It definitely does. I think it also takes some research on the company's part. Like a lot of people like that same desk because of, like we just said, the tech is set up the way they like it.
Yeah.
So find out what the different tech options are that people are using and make sure you have desks with that in it. People do like knickknacks, make sure you have pens, make sure you have squeezy balls, maybe put that Nerf basketball thing here or there. A lot of what people decorate with, most people have their photos on their phone now. It's not necessarily the photo on the desk anymore. A lot of it is just work tools or relaxation tools. So have some of those.
So sort of in the direction of this concept of office neighborhoods, what we're really talking about is tip 2, which is collaborative zones. These are specific areas in the office environment that are designed to encourage brainstorming and spontaneous interactions. Now, this could be an open lounge with comfortable seats and, writable surfaces, would be it chalkboards or whiteboards or what have you, or technology-equipped conference rooms where people can gather for meetings or impromptu discussions or what have you, but spaces that are like, hey, you know what? 8 of us need to have a quick half an hour meeting. We go to that space.
Yeah, and I'd say have a few and have them for different sized groups from 2 up. A place I used to work, it was so great just out in the middle of the open floor. They had these little sort of like school desks, with the little desk that flipped up or down. Yeah. And it's just such a different seat from where you would normally be sitting that it was just really fun. And so a lot of times, you see someone in the hallway or you're passing in their desk and you start to have a quick conversation, we just move over to those. Mm-hmm. I would say if you're going to have a room for this or a zone, like you said, digital whiteboards, have some interactive displays, get your tech right. But I will say this, if you're going to include both in-office and remote employees, you need to get that video conferencing set up well so that everybody can see. If you're sharing a screen, everybody can hear very well. But I would say this, I would keep these separate from your meeting rooms. It shouldn't be the same type of space or furniture because a meeting room, it just has a vibe and it's not really necessarily a collaboration and creativity.
Yeah, I always think of meeting rooms as someone's going to present something and then maybe we'll talk about it.
We're going to talk about why we need to have more meetings.
Yeah, right. Tip number 3 is sort of, again, piggybacking off this, wellness spaces. What we're talking about is specific zones dedicated to wellness, to sort of holistic health, if you will.
Yeah, employee wellness is a huge topic right now for internal communications and people management, HR, whatever you're calling it these days. It's definitely huge in the digital signage area. We have some subscriptions for wellness tips, but this is something everybody's really into now.
Right, and it's not necessarily like just putting in a PS5 or an Xbox or something. It could be a quiet room or a meditation room. I mean, if you're set up for it, even maybe like a relaxation pod of some sort. Little places where people can take short breaks to just kind of recharge and refocus. I mean, I know you are not really a napper. You sleep or you're awake. But like for me, a 20-minute nap can be the difference between having a productive second half of the workday and not.
Yeah, and I know one thing that works for you and something that I think would be cool is have just a single little enclosed space with like classical music or trip hop or some relaxing sounds, sounds of nature. Don't do whale songs. Nobody likes whale songs.
Well, but if nobody else can hear it, who cares?
That's true. Have a selection, obviously, but you need to have comfy furniture. Plants add to wellness. It's just bringing the outside inside is great. Have natural lighting. One of our clients actually has very cool little quiet rooms. They're on the corner of their building and they have like at least one wall is floor to ceiling window with nature outside. So you're looking at that and it's like a suspended one of those sort of rattan chairs hanging from the ceiling and has the footrest and everything hanging. So very cool. But my thing is if you can get a hammock in there, let's go.
Yeah. And I think natural lighting is also quite important.
Yeah.
Part of the whole wellness idea is tip 4, fitness facilities, right? You want people to prioritize their health and maybe even incorporate exercise into their daily routine. I mean, I know I spend my whole workday basically sitting at a desk and it gets tiring and my aging body starts to creak and hurt a little bit. So you could have like a gym on site or even just a smaller like exercise studio with just a couple of things, maybe some yoga mats, maybe some strength training equipment or cardio machines. You don't have to go crazy and have, $100,000 worth of gym equipment in there, but a couple of things that everybody or most people might use. Not a bad thing to have.
A lot of it isn't even the investment in the equipment, but you're thinking, I have downsized. I don't have space for that, but I bet there's one room that people don't use a lot or one office that you could put a treadmill in there, one of those, big bouncy balls, a couple of, hand weights would be great.
Right, a stationary bike.
Yeah, just one thing that people could book, or go in there and use when they want to. And if you can't even do that, like we have some free messages that are just desk stretches. Again, use your digital signs to reinforce this of, hey, get up, move around. Have you taken a break? That whole every 20 minutes, stare 20 feet away from your screen. But, another way is you don't have to organize it all yourself. You could just have like a yoga class a couple times a week, have somebody from the outside come in, have someone come in and do chair massages, and all of that is back to our subject, which is enticing people back to the office.
I don't get that at my house.
Yeah, that certainly might bring people back in if they know that that's happening.
Yeah, that's for sure. So just like you want to have dedicated areas for relaxation and kind of getting your head right and maybe getting a little fitness on, it's also a good idea to have dedicated focus areas, which is tip 5. Obviously, collaboration is important, but not everything we do is collaborative. And sometimes I need uninterrupted focus and deep work. If I'm writing something and I'm on a roll, I do not want to be disturbed. So maybe taking a couple of small spaces or even a whole office to include quiet zones or dedicated focus areas that let people really immerse themselves in a distraction-free environment so that they can concentrate on complex tasks or projects. And people know that this is this kind of a space, so when employee A is in it, you don't bug them unless it's important. You don't just pop in and go, hey, so you going to the game? I'm in the quiet zone. I'm in the focus zone. Don't bug me.
Yeah, it's great, especially for people who are doing things like training. They are a trainer. Our software trainers, it used to be you had to put a piece of paper on your door saying, don't knock, don't come in.
Shut the heck up.
Yeah. And don't stand outside my door and laugh about what you did this weekend with your buddy. So yeah, these are great. But and that's the thing. They usually have like soundproofing. There's like no phones allowed, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about, your coworker's phone going off in the middle of your video or whatever recording you're doing. It helps people concentrate. And I will say, I think this is a huge draw for people who, if they're working remotely at home, they might have kids and pets and a spouse and lots of distractions. If you live in a city, you've got a lot of traffic noise. And once in a while, say you're recording a podcast. Maybe, Derek DeWitt needs to go into the office to hit that focus area, that quiet zone, so that he can get this done.
Without a police siren or ambulance going by.
Right.
Speaking of training, for example, number 6, learning and development zones. Why not also invest in the growth of your employees and the development of their skills so they can have a competitive edge? So, repurpose office space to give employees access to opportunities for continuous learning. This could be training rooms with multimedia capabilities, workshops, seminars, virtual training sessions, what have you. I don't know. Are people still using CD-ROMs? I don't know if they are. Probably online learning systems.
Yeah, I think creating a digital library or some resource center where all of your employees can access training materials and education things. You don't want to leave your remote employees out, but you can supplement some of that. Most courses sometimes have a course book, and some people are going to prefer opening that book, cracking that spine, versus reading that PDF on the same monitor that they're working on all day long. So I think you can reinforce that within your office space. And, it could be a big benefit to employees, especially if they're working on like a certification, either getting it or maintaining it.
Right. Which, of course, is just great for the company as well. So,
Yeah.
Number 7, innovation labs. We went to Noma, the famous restaurant in Copenhagen, and part of their whole setup is that they have these basically experimentation labs, fermentation labs, other things where they're trying to experiment with different food, and it really creates this it's a focus for all of the employees, but also a chance to play and learn and also find practical applications for those learnings. So to get that kind of stuff out of people, you might consider setting up an innovation lab, a space with resources where people can prototype new ideas and experiment. This kind of creates this entrepreneurial, experimentative mindset within the organization. So these areas would have like tools and equipment and materials that would allow people to prototype and test new concepts or even new products.
Yeah, and again, this is a nice way to get that cross-department collaboration. Maybe it is your team. Maybe you are working on, I don't know, software development, doing a new game, a new app, and so it's just you. But you might also want to bring in other people for, like you said, if you've done a prototype, maybe it's a little market testing within your own company. This sounds similar to the collaboration zone, but it's very different because of, like you said, it's doing physical experiments. And it may not be a chemistry set, but it could just be art boards, a giant whiteboard, something like that.
Right. I think the difference between this and, say, a collaboration zone is I imagine collaboration zones are, we already have a project or a series of tasks that we're working on, and we'd like to collaborate to find the best way forward for that. Whereas the end goal is to create something new.
Yeah, innovation is just what we say all the time. It used to be brainstorming. I mean, it could literally be that. This is your brainstorming room also.
Right. Number 8, flexible meeting spaces, which we touched upon briefly earlier. Meeting rooms are usually traditionally sort of a one-size-fits-all, and that's just not how modern people work, and all meetings are not actually the same. Some are more brainstorm, some are a presentation, and everybody shut up and take the information on board and go back to your various departments. So because there are different kinds of people and different kinds of meetings, you should have flexible meeting spaces, different sizes, different configurations. This gives people more options, more choice. I mean, you could actually have modular furniture with maybe like movable partitions that can be reconfigured to accommodate either small group discussions or large presentations.
Yeah, I mean, our house is all modular. We made sure things could be moved around to fit our needs, and we did it by living in the space first, and then we built out the decor, the furniture, all of it. We did it around how is it used most often. I think companies need to do that. Inconveniently, you will find you have, 3 people meetings and 30 people meetings. You won't have that nice gradation, but you can make that space, like you said, with flexible partitions and things like that. You can make that work, do that with your meeting spaces. Find out how people are using them. We talk about all the time, hey, this 2-person meeting is booked in a 12-person conference room every Tuesday at 3. Get them those little desks.
I mean, it feels weird, too, when you're in a giant space and there are like 3 of you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, my voice is echoing. When it comes to event spaces, number 9, dynamic event spaces as well. A lot of companies have company-wide meetings, networking sessions, town halls. This is important for keeping everybody up to date and also building community among all the people. So again, repurposing office spaces to include dynamic event spaces that can, again, for various purposes, accommodate large gatherings. This just helps enhance the company's ability to host events that are impactful and pleasant to be a part of.
You define your events. I mean, ideally, as we said, just like the meeting rooms, your event spaces would be reconfigurable. So you don't have this giant space sitting empty, all but one day a month. This is what Visix did. We moved into our new offices and we've got one large room, and it's usually sort of just a common area. People can work there. People can chill out there. It's a giant room with a couch. It's got some armchairs. It's got some screens, of course. There's a ping pong table, a couple of cocktail height, workstations. There's a whiteboard if you want it. But it all can be moved around. And like when we have our town hall, we literally just have a closet, a big storage space that we throw the ping pong table in, and we set out a bunch of chairs. Yeah. And it works great. And it's this space that is very welcoming and set up for the big meeting. But when it's not having a big meeting, it's just as comfortable and just as welcoming.
And speaking of ping pong, number 10 is recreational areas, which is different than like a chill out area. A place that allows people to, relax, but also maybe blow off some steam, like a ping pong table or foosball, or like I said, PS5s, gaming consoles, or just some board games or cards or whatever. Just something that allows people to unwind and maybe even socialize with each other, things that require 2 or more people.
Yeah, I think the difference in this is that this is dedicated to recreation. I mean, yes, you could repurpose your event space, could be this most of the time, but it's nice to have a space where this is for no work. And this is like a comfortable lounge. You have couches, bean bags. Maybe you've got magazines or books, like you said, you've got a PlayStation or you've got, movies people can watch, whatever. The big thing here is that it's not just saying we're okay with you taking a break. It kind of tells them, if this is your culture, we want you to take breaks.
Right.
We're fine with it, and we've actually are trying to make this comfortable. Again, I will always say, ask your employees what they want. Don't just make assumptions and then kit this whole thing out and then find out, well, nobody uses it or we bought a really uncomfortable, love seat,
Right. Or I spent all this money sourcing and tracking down a vintage Mrs. Pac-Man game, and it turns out that nobody wants to play it.
Nobody does. It's always about asteroids.
Right. So number 11 is not specifically about repurposing office space, but it is about taking advantage of green space. Obviously, if you have any outdoor spaces, a garden, a patio, a rooftop terrace, employees have access to natural sunlight, fresh air, but creating outdoor seating areas with tables and chairs and umbrellas that let people also work or socialize, depending on what the weather is also a great idea. And if you don't have access to outdoor spaces, try and simulate it a little bit.
Yeah, and we've been talking about events and meetings. Go outside for those as much as you can. If the weather's nice, get people outside, or schedule a team building activity when you see the weather's going to be incredible. It can really energize whatever you're working on, whether it's that brainstorming session or a meeting or a town hall, whatever it is. I'd say if you have that rooftop lounge or you have some great patio with seating and everything, again, you're going to maybe attract some of those remote workers to come into the office. That is our whole point here, luring people back. And, you're going to want to advertise that in advance as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And if you live somewhere like, somewhere like a Florida or even Atlanta, Georgia, you can kind of say even our weekly meeting, if it's a small group, they live locally, nobody objects to coming in. I don't mandate it. I don't like mandates to come in, but you might attract them if they know that I don't have a park near me. I live in the city or whatever, and they're like, I don't really get a lot of green space. It's really nice to be able to go out there and just sit outside and get some work done. Yeah,
that's absolutely the case. Now, so far, these 11 items have been talking about the physical layout of the facility and the way you can repurpose rooms or zones or what have you. But offering just amenities can also boost employee satisfaction, well-being, and contribute to that positive work culture and stronger employee engagement, like we've said.
Yeah, and again, amenities can help lure people back to the office. If you're offering something they don't have at home, or quite frankly, if you're paying for something they don't want to have to pay for at home, you can get them back in.
Yeah, that's for sure. So like you were talking about outdoor spaces and finding ways to get people out there. Kind of ties into tip 12, which is on-site dining options. Now, combining that with outdoor spaces, I know once in a while Visix will have a food truck come in and say, hey, we have some benches outside, which is a small investment. We have an outdoor space. We bought some benches. Now there are places for people to sit. And we have a food truck come in and bam, bam, Plus, people get to choose the food truck, and that's fun. And so, that's great. But even if you don't have that, other kinds of on-site dining options beyond the vending machine are not only give convenience, but also, again, create this sense of community. It encourages people to share meals and interact with each other socially. You could partner with local food vendors or restaurants to provide catering services, or if you're big enough, you could set up like a cafeteria or a kitchenette where employees can access, freshly prepared meals and snacks. And obviously at really big companies like the Googleplex with Google, they actually have celebrity chefs who come in, on Wednesday, it's going to be this guy. And on Thursday, it's going to be this woman. And that's like a big draw for those people. But you can do this even as small scale as you care to.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a celebrity chef, or maybe it's just, somebody local in your community who's getting some press, or maybe you've got an excellent cook.
I was going to say, maybe
on your staff.
Yeah, maybe you have a great someone who just makes the best muffins.
Yeah, and it's always been an office staple that people bring in baked goods and things like that. So having a place where people can share in that's great. A free meal is always a great perk for employees, and especially for people who are working at home and maybe they don't want to go to the office because of the cost of commuting. That quarter tank of gas, half tank of gas or whatever. Well, if you can offset that by paying for their meals, maybe they'll come in. I will say one huge tip here on any dining is to be sure to offer healthy options. offer options for vegans, vegetarians, gluten-free. You don't want to have the barbecue with just burgers and steaks and alienate people, because even if the next one you remember to do potato salad or whatever, well, they're not coming back because they came and they couldn't eat and they came all the way to the office. All of this stuff. When you do it, you need to have input. You need to do it right the first time, because what you don't want to do is have a disappointing experience coming back where they're turned off.
Right. Hi there. We've alienated all the vegetarians and vegans in our employee. Sorry.
Well, to be fair, as long as you advertise, hey, we've got, new options this time, then I think you're going to get a few people in.
Speaking of food, Americans especially, they're snackers. And so 13 well-stocked pantries, right? Snacks, beverages, refreshments, not just coffee. Making sure people have access to fuel throughout the day. Sometimes you're just feeling a little down and you're like, hey, you know what I need? I need a candy bar or a donut or something healthy. You can have healthy snacks, fresh fruit, granola bars, nuts. Or you can go, full pig out. Bunch of candy bars, some donuts, some pastries. Why not?
All of it.
All of it.
I'm for all of it. I'm a snacker. So again, I'm going to brag about Visix here. They have all kinds of snacks sitting around the office. The candy, their peanut M&Ms are there. So I'm just like, I'm done. Forget
all those.
Yeah, there are apples. Who's gonna touch an apple when they're peanut M&Ms?
Maybe stick some peanut M&Ms in the apple.
Ooh, or on the apple, yeah. But they have all kinds of snacks, healthy and the not so healthy, like we said. They also have a lot of different types of drinks in the fridge, which is nice. And you mentioned vending machines. Well, we used to have vending machines, but now it's all free. It used to be $1. I know I would spend $10 a day on vitamin waters, but
right.
It's all free. And I would say this: if you do have vending machines, you're like, I don't have space. It's a small office. I don't have space for a whole kitchen area or a cafeteria. What if you just made your vending machines free?
Yeah, exactly so. Plus, it's annoying to have to, I have to remember when I go into the office to have 10 $1 bills.
Well, yeah, nobody carries cash. I mean, if you have a vending machine, I hope it's taken, Apple Pay and electronic payment.
Yeah, for sure. Another way to make a space very inviting is tip 14, art installations. Most urban centers have galleries and other art people who curate installations for businesses. So you can bring these people in, they'll put up a bunch of art after consulting with you, maybe consulting with the employees as well, and it changes on a regular basis, and it's actually not that expensive, and that's kind of a cool thing to do.
Yeah, we have a friend here who owns an art gallery who does that for companies. I think she switches out their art like once a month.
Once a month, yeah, that's exactly right. So, it creates visual interest, it creates variety. These things are conversation starters, not just for employees, but for any visitors who happen to come along. And again, this could be paintings, this could be sculptures, it could be photography, all stuff that somehow reflects something that's important to the company, its values, its culture, the industry, what have you.
At Visix, we have incredible designers, and most designers happen to also be artists, but you might even have some people who that's not their job, but that's their hobby. You could ask employees to do exhibitions of their own art if they feel comfortable, and, maybe they'll get a sale out of it. It could be great.
That would be nice. Staying with creativity, our 15th and final tip is offer creative workshops and classes. Again, why not? Not everybody's going to be into it, but some people might be like, hey, I've always been interested in this. Maybe they get inspired by some of the art that you're showing in the office. And they think, yeah, I'd like to learn painting or drawing or photography or something. Why not? If it turns out that your people are interested in this, or enough people are, bring in some experienced instructors from outside. Give access to art supplies and art equipment to let people sort of unleash their creativity and experiment with different mediums. I mean, again, how cool would that be? Yeah, I work in this office, we make widgets, but I also learned the basics of photography. How exciting is that? I didn't learn that at home.
Yeah, and I mean, you can do these as team building activities as well, or just purely for fun. And here's the thing, you don't even have to hire someone in. There are so many websites if you Google team building activities, and some of them require some art supplies and things, and some don't, or some you can just use a computer and a projector and do wordplay, things like that. So I think this is very easy to do. I think you look at your industry, you look at the job roles, you look at your personalities in the office and pull from that. And yeah, it can be creative. It can be, digital design, or like you said, painting or a writing class or photography. But I also think what you think of as creativity is different to different people. Coding is creative to a software developer. I mean, right now for creativity, I would offer, hey, come in, we're going to go through this. You can even do an online course, but on screen in the office and have everybody do it together with breakout sessions to talk about things. But I would be offering like how to use ChatGPT, how to use Gemini, you know, how can this help you?
How do you write prompts?
Well, how do you write prompts? How does this help you in your job? But even like a Microsoft Excel course for people who want it. Yeah, normally we tell people, here it is, it's online, do it, let your manager know when it's done. But again, you make it more social, you make it more active, you make it more fun if you bring people together to do that.
Yeah, that's true. So there you go. 15 tips to help you reorganize your space and get people wanting to come back into the office. It's really about building community. And as Joe Pirardi said in a previous episode, instead of the thought being, I have to come back to the office, it's I get to come back into the office.
Exactly. I mean, you really have to think about how you repurpose that space in your offices. You want to encourage social interactions, connections, collaboration, and you have to look at everything that's in that space, the carpet, the furniture, the lighting. Think about not just what you're doing and where you're doing it, but how you're doing it and how you're encouraging your people to utilize that space.
Yeah, I mean, at a minimum, you got to have at least a couple of break rooms where people can have casual conversations. Another idea is, hey, you know what? In this office, we're putting 2 desks instead of 1 because it automatically becomes a kind of a mini collaboration space.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. On a final promotional note for Visix, I would say if you have digital signage, you need to also look at that. I talked about space and furnishings and all that, but certainly even if it's not digital, if you've got art, if you've got posters, but definitely if it's digital, is it contributing to a welcoming, motivating environment?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think technology obviously is going to play a pivotal role in the office experience. It does now and going forward. Repurposing office spaces should involve integrating technological solutions that enhance communication and productivity and efficiency, but make sure you have the right technology for the right room or right subspace.
Yeah, definitely. And it could take some experimentation. I know, as I keep talking about Visix, but when we moved into our new headquarters, it took a little bit to work out the technology for our town halls because we had about half and half in the office, half at home. And getting those sound levels right, getting the screen sharing right, most importantly, getting the tools in place for people to participate. If you need to raise your hand and you're in Prague, like me, you need to have the technology tools in place that someone can chat or raise their hand or interject, and they don't just get forgotten about because they're not in the room.
This also may involve a little bit of a mindset shift because the person who's sort of running, so say the town hall, also needs to remember, oh yeah, that's right. There will be people raising their hands, quote unquote, but they're not physically present.
Absolutely true. But I will say, since the whole point of this podcast is getting people back in the office, it's better. Be in the office when we have that meeting. That's how you do that.
Right, if at all possible. Obviously, implementing digital signage and wayfinding systems help employees sort of navigate the office layout and find resources and colleagues. Like you said, hey, at least once in a while, here's a screen that shows who's in the office and when they're here and where they are and this what's going on today, and here's a map of all the different kinds of spaces we have, and things like this.
Yeah, we've done an episode with Jill Pirardi about workplace wayfinding. Wayfinding is really changing now, where it's about the people in the office as opposed to someone coming to a large campus and trying to find their way between buildings. So I'd definitely check that out if you can. I will say, obviously, you need digital signs. And one thing to remember is it's a good idea to make sure you have consistent communications. We've talked about this a lot with hybrid offices, is that, people need to see the same information at the same time across your channels. But I think one of the ways you lure people back into the office is also having some stuff that's just for them. I mean, your people at home are probably looking at your digital signage content on a website or on an app or on Teams. So when you've got those big screens, it looks better, it's more dynamic, more eye-catching, and do some things just for the people in the office. You can have contests just for them. Again, you don't want, if you're having that food truck, let everybody know. I mean, think of it as an advertising campaign. Will this get someone to come in the office? But for those who show up every day, do something a little special for them. There's nothing wrong with that.
A little goes a long way.
Yeah, and as always, word of mouth. The people who are in the office talk to people out of the office, and they're like, "Hey, it's really cool. Oh, my commute is so much better. We have traffic information in the office. You're not seeing that at home, but it's helping me. That's why I'm here that extra half an hour to talk to you today."
So, as we navigate the hybrid workplace, companies have a unique opportunity to reimagine and repurpose office space. By prioritizing flexibility, collaboration, wellness, and community, organizations can create environments that not only lure employees back, but also foster innovation and engagement and, let's be honest, success. Well, I'd like to thank my guest today, Debbie DeWitt. She is the Marketing Communications Manager for Visix, for talking with me about this. A ton of good ideas.
I think so. And yeah, I'll just say it. I do like working at home, and I happen to not live in the same country as my headquarters. But man, I'm jealous. When I am there, I love being in the office.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Debbie, for talking to me. And of course, thank you everybody out there for listening. I remind you again, there is a transcript on the Visix website. Go check it out. For more free stuff, head to resources on Visix.com for guides, videos, and more to help with your visual communications. Please subscribe and share, and contact us for information about our digital signage solutions.